Hey, this is JB from Huffy, and today we're going to be talking about adjusting and tightening your threadless headset on your bike. So depending on your bike, you may have different sized hardware on your threadless headset. Everything on this one happens to be a 5mm hex. Typically, you'll be between 5, 4, or maybe even a 6mm hex used, and sometimes they are mixed and matched where you may have a 5 and 4s here. So just be aware that you probably have some sort of metric hardware holding your threadless headset together. So these two pieces of hardware are what tighten the stem around the steer tube that comes up from the suspension and directs your front wheel on where to go. This is your tension cap and the hardware that's attached to the tension cap. So I'm just going to loosen the tension cap. And that's going to reduce any of the tension that was on that. Tension is important because it's what keeps all your bearings together and provides a little bit of resistance to your steering. So now I'm going to loosen the other two pieces of hardware here. And this is going to let us explore this threadless system a little bit more. So now those are loose, so you can see that this moves all now independently of the fork and front wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and completely remove the tension cap. So the tension cap is a piece of hardware, the cap that's attached to it. And it goes down in here and attaches to a star-fangled nut that's inside the steer tube. So let's say that you wanted your stem to be a little bit lower. You could remove a spacer, add the spacer onto the top, and then re-add your tension cap on, moving your stem and handlebars a little bit lower in the stance of the bike. You could re-add the spacer to the bottom, put your tension cap back in place. Tighten it down. And while I'm not using a torque wrench in this case, if you do have a torque wrench that measures Newton meters, you would typically be around 8 Newton meters when you're tightening your tension cap. So I always add tension to my cap before I tighten these two pieces of hardware. When these are tightened before the tension cap, your tension cap is fighting against the grip of these pieces of hardware rather than the grip of the star-fangled nut inside the steer tube. So remember to tighten this first and then tighten these. Alright, so I have this snug. It's not super tight. I haven't wrenched down on it and stripped anything out or over tightened. It should be difficult to move the handlebars while holding the wheel and fork in place. And what this also does is you can align your front wheel, fork, and handlebar with just the tension from your cap and then tighten the two clamping force pieces of hardware on your stem after the fact, once you have everything lined up. So now I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down. And I'm doing these so that I get equal clamping force on both. I'm not tightening the top one all the way down and then tightening the bottom one. I'm tightening both of them 1/4 to 1/2 turn each as they get tight, and then kind of doing my final couple spins here just to make sure that they're balanced. Some stems have a much smaller gap right here, and then when you have that smaller gap, you want to make sure that gap stays the same on the top and bottom. You don't want a large gap at the bottom and a small gap at the top. You want those gaps to be pretty uniform and look the same when you're done. Alright, so that is a threadless headset. We've adjusted our tension cap, tightened it down, and then tighten the two clamping force pieces of hardware there, and our threadless headset is put together and ready to go.